The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGeek webinar series, our endeavor to empower techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is key to enhance our skills and grow us as a professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is Top 10 Skills You Need to Excel in Project Management Job Interviews. Our guest speaker for today's session is Mr. Ashish Doke. He is Principal Consultant at Knowledge Words Consulting and Projecting IT. Ashish has about 17 years of experience in software development and management. Earlier, he has worked as project leader, project manager, and engagement manager involving onshore and offshore teams based out in UK and India. He is certified in PMP, Prince2, projects, program and portfolio management and agile project management. He is also accredited by APMG as a Prince2, agile and earned value management trainer. Apart, he is a certified specialist in Microsoft Project and Project Server. In last few years, Ashish has been working as a project management consultant and trainer. He does PMP, Prince2, Agile, Microsoft Project Training and Consultancy. Ashish has helped organizations in implementing PMO using best practice project management with Prince2, PMBOK, Microsoft Enterprise Project Server, and Microsoft SharePoint. He also supported organizations in effectively planning, monitoring, and reporting using dashboard and software tools to improve collaboration and visibility amongst virtual teams. So without any further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Ashish.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gaurav. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar on excelling job interviews for project managers. My name is Ashish Tok, and I'm presenting this webinar on behalf of Knowledge Woods. Knowledge Wood is a leading provider for PMP certification exams. And thank you so much for finding time to attend this webinar. Let's just begin. Let's just quickly look at the agenda we have for today. So we'll talk about first on discovering yourself. We will talk about where we are currently and where we need to be. We'll talk about finding out our skill gaps, and then how do we prepare a roadmap for bridging those gaps. We'll talk about some 10 steps of preparing yourself before you attend your next interview. And finally, we talk about what do we do next post this webinar. The objective, let me just clarify once again, is about helping you identifying steps for preparing for your next interview. Let's look at the problems first before we get started. A lot of people face the proverbial midlife crisis where they want to do something that probably they are now looking forward to. For example, what incites them or what excites them in job, like I would like to do budgeting myself, or I would like to do the resource management, or I want to be in the engagement management. Probably sometimes a project manager does not have a sufficient authority to assign resources or do planning, and instead has been given a plan by somebody and has to collect status and report it to the boss or the customers. We are looking at certain problems that actually brings about us to figure out where we want to go next. It could be basically nailing down your problems. So we get started with first knowing ourselves, discovering what I'm currently doing. Am I a project manager who is also a functional manager, or a functional manager who is also managing a project, or I am running operations and support type of projects, or maybe a techie who is also leading a team? We need to first define where we come from, what are our current responsibilities. Are we basically making things happen for a project plan that has been given by a customer or a delivery manager? We need to look at, am I a project manager just in name only, or am I also following the best practices that employers are looking at? So maybe the first step to get started is to define myself. That is, writing down my responsibilities, my accountabilities, my deliverables, and the the tasks that basically I do on a day-to-day basis to manage my project or teams. Once I define what are my responsibilities, next would be to write down what I would like to achieve now, where I see myself in the next 5 years or maybe in the next immediate future. So you define basically what I would like to achieve, what I would like to do, what is my next role, or what is the next position that I am looking at, or what responsibilities I want to take up next. So you define, for example, a team lead wants to look at a project lead responsibility, or a project lead is looking for a project manager, or project manager looking at responsibilities for an engagement manager or program management or account management. Maybe I would like to get into the project management office to basically help organization to implement best practices. Maybe I want to do pre-sales activity. Maybe I want to be based out of onshore and do customer relationship management. So you will have to define what exactly you would like to achieve or do next. You will have to make all the list of things that are on our wish list. Maybe somebody wants to manage more people. Maybe somebody wants to manage multiple projects, or maybe I would like to run projects that basically are more value to my company. So first, write down what you know or what you are doing, and then write down what you would like to do, that is the wish list. And then we identify and compare the gaps, basically looking at what I'm doing, what I want to do next, and then comparing it with what employers are now looking at, what kind of skill sets they are looking for the job that I want to take next, or the responsibilities that I want to take next. You can look at your organization's job profile, job descriptions. You can look at the advertised jobs on different employment portals. You can talk to headhunters. You can talk to peers. You can look at the social sites, which basically do advertising for jobs. You can look at what employers and people are looking for the role or responsibilities that you want to take next. Look at, compare what is the gap. Identify those gaps and figure out how do I need to fill up those gaps one by one in the coming days or years. You might want to prioritize your objectives. You might want to look at what I wish to take up next, which ones are on the short term, which ones are on the long term objectives. Once you have identified the plan for your skill set building, next would be to start preparing for it. Maybe one of them is to get noticed. And what better than getting project management certification? A project management certification gets you noticed, or you can stand out amongst your other peers in terms of knowledge and skills. Now, a project management certification might not be a silver bullet that solves all problems on projects. However, it basically brings a certain kind of confidence in the employer or the customers that you have gone through a structured learning process and that you know most things or most knowledge areas that are required by a project manager. You might want to look at things such as project management professional certification that comes from PMI, or maybe a Prince2 certification that comes from Excelos UK, or an ITL, which is basically for service management. And looking at the trend for software development, you might want to look at Agile or Scrum. A certification will get you listed, shortlisted, and then perhaps a good chance for getting an interview. Nobody would like to know your certification knowledge basically, but you would like to display how you have helped your projects by using those knowledge. For example, if I am a Prince2 certified project manager, how did I use the Prince2 best practices in my projects? How did I use Agile to improve basically the visibility of what I am doing to my customers or my manager? Or maybe I have used, for example, PMP best practices to kind of manage risks better. So we'll have to look at how you have aligned best practices to help it better for your projects. You'll have to basically sell yourself as a project manager who brings best practices from different areas. For example, I use Agile, I use Prince2, and how I use Agile on my projects in getting to know the requirements better, or showing visibility of the product that is being evolved for the customer, and so on. The project management certifications also needs to be chosen based on the recognition. For example, if I work for a US customer or a US employer, then probably a PMP certification works better. PMP is very recognized for companies that work from US or Canada or mostly in India as well. So you have PMP certification which can actually help us get noticed, or you have Prince2 certification for companies or project managers who are looking to take up jobs for companies who work from UK, Europe, or maybe in Australia. You might want to also look at certification for ITIL, Agile, Scrum, which are also quite hot in terms of product development companies. ITIL would be for service management, and Agile project management or a Scrum certification would be for product development companies. You might also want to know the other best practices or certifications that are available. For example, if I am already a PMP, perhaps it is good to know what is the value offered by a Prince2 certificate, or how I can get better and complement my PMBOK best practices using something like Prince2, and also get recognized and have a wider acceptance. You might also want to know how ITIL help us in running services more effectively. For example, we deliver a project and then it goes into operations and service management. How does I use some best practices from ITIL for managing my incidences, or for doing problem management, or for doing configuration management and managing changes to the operational environment? Or perhaps a Scrum certification or a Scrum knowledge will probably help me how to evolve a product from scratch. How do I ensure that I have a reduced change request and a better customer acceptance for all the work that I do? You will probably have to display your knowledge or best practices to the interview when asked. Next, we need to know our projects better. We need to talk about why the current project is being undertaken by the customer, perhaps the objectives behind the project, the rationale for undertaking, what business need we are addressing by doing this project, how the products will bring the intended outcome to my customer, what type of people we are using, skill sets, technology, what is the strength of the project, and the timelines when the project needs to be done, or various releases that we have. Probably we need to also define about the client's business and how my project adds value to the business. Perhaps a business case needs to be understood and explained. So when a question is about what is your current project, we need to be able to give the business perspective behind the project, the objectives, and how it brings the intended change in the customer organization. We need to make sure that we don't talk about customer names, because this needs to be protected. We also talk about various estimate techniques. We also talk about the various estimate techniques. Gaurav,
Yeah, sis.
you need to mute yourself. Somebody's voice is coming in the background.
Sorry, Sachin was unmuted.
We also need to understand. Okay, right. We also need to understand the various techniques for project estimation. Although you might have learned a lot of techniques during your PMP exam preparation, PMBOK, or in other courses, probably using those names as is might not really help. For example, talking about parametric estimating, in general, in a software development project, you might use techniques such as function points, or you might use in Agile like planning Cooper techniques to basically size your project or figure out the story points that we need to deliver. You might also have some company-based proprietary techniques, for example, complexity-based estimates or some metrics that you use from your past projects. So we need to understand basically how are we doing estimation of our project. In fact, first place would be, do I do the estimate myself, or do I get estimates from somebody and I just make it happen? For example, the pre-sales people give me a project and they just give me a deadline and there is no room for doing estimates. And I just try to make sure that I do such that I meet their expectation and deliver on that date. In that case, we are not really doing estimation. But If you want to move to the next step or next position, probably where you have to do the estimate yourself, in that case you need to know what kind of techniques I can use for doing estimation, how I can use the previous project data, how I can look at the productivity of my people, or specific to a technology, how much days or hours it takes for us to do this. And at different times of my project, how do I do estimation? For example, if you move to engagement management, at that time you will have very less information about the project to give an early estimate to your customer. So how do you use those previous metrics, or how do you use function points to give basically that start estimate to your customer, and how do you keep doing the refinement of your estimate? How do you go about sizing your project? These things are something that you would like to know if you are not doing that currently. And if you are doing that currently, probably you will need to know basically how we can use the previous estimates, or how we collect data, how we use that data for analyzing and making our estimate process better. The reason behind that is, if you get into the engagement management, account management, or maybe in the delivery aspects of your project, you will basically be responsible for responding to RFPs, that is requests for proposals that come from your customers. At that time, you will need to know how do I, what kind of contract I need to choose, maybe fixed price or time and material, how do I give my estimates. So it is good to know some processes of estimation. Probably you might be asked some questions on how do you do estimates. So you need to prepare well for that, and you need to know some techniques that will help you in estimating your project. Few other things which are very important, for example, how do you do the pricing of your project? What kind of contract do you use? And basically, do you have certain risks on that type of contract? How do you manage those type of risks? Like, I'm using a fixed price contract for my project, and what if the customer gives me or sneaks in certain change request? How do I identify that this is a change request? How do I make sure that I don't do extra work because I'm not get paid for it? How do I manage risks to the change request? Or how do I manage risks to the profit that has been built into my fixed code? Now we need to know and understand all these things. We need to know how configuration management works if I'm not currently doing. For example, I'm a team lead and configuration management is somebody else's responsibility. But I need to know how I'm going to make sure that my project documents are securely stored, my code is securely stored, we can go back to the previous version. Apart from that, it helps to know what kind of change control board needs to be set up, what kind of change budget is required for my project, how I'm going to manage risk, how I can use my previous experience to get better in management, in doing preventive management and corrective management. All these things probably might be asked by the employer based upon the position that you are targeting for your next job. So it would be good to know all these things of change management, configuration management, scope creep, or sometimes gold plating, which is basically some extras that are given by my team to the customers even without them asking for it. So how do you keep an eye on those? These are the things that one needs to make sure, because they eat profit of the company. Next, we want to be aware about the project management softwares that can make my life better. For example, I'm a project manager, I know how to do estimation, I know how to do scheduling. However, if I use a spreadsheet, then it has got its own limitation. An Excel sheet cannot make a schedule for me. I can only tell what date I want to start a task, what date I finish a task. And imagine you have 100 tasks on your spreadsheet. I mean, 100 would be, even for a small project, you might have more than those. But imagine you have just 100 tasks on your project, and then you write down for each task the estimate it takes, the start date, the end date, and the resource. Now imagine the first task itself is running late, and instead of 5 days, it takes 10 days. Now am I going to go and change start and end date for all other activities, that is the 99 activities? That would be waste of my time. That wouldn't be good project management. That wouldn't be increasing my productivity. So how do I get better? There are many softwares that can help me in making schedules. For example, Microsoft Project or Primavera. Based upon the industry you come from, domain you come from, you can choose. But Microsoft Project is one leading software that helped me basically know what is my project schedule, when we start, how many phases we have, what's my project budget, which resources I need, who is doing what. I can extract different type of reports from there. I can even also look at the resource requirement, how many testers I need for September month, how many developers I need for September month. So I can do my resource utilization plan, I can do my cost plan, I can show my cost project cost flow statements. All of these things can be done very well using softwares. Now the trend is not to go and start using Microsoft Office products, but to get into, for example, SharePoint. So we need to know how we can run a project using SharePoint or some collaborative tool wherein my teams can collaborate, chat instantly, be on the real-time connectivity, and also share project documents from one place. Now, if I have my teams working from UK, US, and India, how do I stay connected with all of them? How do we all make sure that there is a project site where we have some headlines for the project, there is certain risk list that is shown, so everything is accessed on a browser, and somebody is updating and making sure it stays updated. These things are a must to have now. I mean, these skills are not like nice to have, but chances are the next employer you might have to work, you might work with, they already have something like this. So if you are not using something like this, try to see what softwares are there. For example, SharePoint is one. Another one is Microsoft Project Server. You also have Clarity, you have Visible. There are plenty of products basically who help in collaborating project documents and scheduling, issue management. If you are using Agile or Scrum, you might want to look at Scrum Do, or you might want to look at Jira or Greenhoppers. So there are many softwares that you can look at and build some skills there, because this will again help you stand out amongst others by using good technology for your benefit. So what we discussed so far, first step is to determine where we stand, write down all the responsibilities, that is what I am currently doing. Next, I would go and write down what I want to do next, and then compare it what employers are looking at, that is the current job profiles for the responsibilities for the profile I'm looking for next. And to then bridge the gap, you start with certification. If you don't have any, then go for the one that best suits that responsibility and the geographical kind of location, like US is PMP or Prince2, whichever. Then we talked about next is to make sure that we have good knowledge of softwares that can be used to build productivity and bring efficiency in the way we manage projects. Let's look at being aware of the popular methodologies. Waterfall projects are for the ones that basically start from scratch. For example, a lot of projects that we have been running last decade are run through waterfall cycle, wherein we do everything sequential, like we do analysis, then we get the sign off, then we do design, then get the sign off, then do development, and so on. We have also seen that it works for few type of projects, but wherever you are building products or wherever you are doing something from scratch, wherein good requirements or definition is not available, we keep getting lots of change requests. So now in the last few years, there has been a trend and a shift towards using Agile and Scrum methodologies. You also have extreme programming, which has been around last more than 15 years now. These are the popular ones that people have started using and customers have also started demanding. So now we need to know about how Agile works. We need to know how Agile works. We need to know how requirements are understood from the customer. How do we do iteratively? How do we make sure that we finish on time? So one of the benefits of using Agile is most projects, they arrive late. That is, I commit to my customer, I will finish by December, and then I end up finishing around February, March, or somewhere. So most projects tend to come late, and one of the reasons behind that is the scope keeps growing and we keep doing the added activities by the customer. Now that way we keep coming late. Now with the market conditions, especially for product market, coming late is not an option, because you come late, you basically lose the market opportunities to your competitors. So how do you get about coming on time? You need to understand that you need to have that scope as the one that is flexible and time as the one which is basically not movable. So you anchor the time and you work towards getting as much requirements done as possible, knowing the business priorities of your customer. You need to understand how these methodologies work. If you have not worked on Agile Scrum, it is good to know what is the perspective, because the chances are your next project could be on Agile or Scrum. If it is on perhaps on product development, or even for e-commerce sites or application development. It is good to know all these ones. Next is position yourself correctly, what you want to become, what you want to be in the next few years, or where you want to see yourself. Do you want to become an architect who also runs a project, or you want to be a project manager who wants to do technical architecture as well, or do you just want to become a project manager who ensures that customer objectives are delivered on time, within budget, using all the technical resources? We need to be very clear about that. We need to either love technology or let go of it if you want to become an engagement manager or a project manager. Also, we need to make sure that we know how we define ourselves. So if there is a question on tell me something about yourself, what do we tell about? What kind of projects do we say? What challenges? So we talk about our achievements, the challenges we faced, how we overcome them, and the objectives of my project, or what I have achieved from my customer. Perhaps some customers speak. The sixth thing that we would like to do is looking beyond the software delivery. We need to also understand a couple of things around the project, because projects are not done in a standalone environment. I was delivered a project charter, I was given a project charter, and I was made responsible to deliver the application within the next 6 months. But what happens to it after 6 months? Who is going to take the product ownership? Who is going to maintain them? What trainings or skill sets they will require? Or is it my team who is going to do production support as well? How differently it will be done compared to the way I am running the project now? What is the RFP for my project? What is the customer need? What is their objective? It is good to also understand the sales cycle, how this project was kind of got selected by my company, and what we did, what kind of proposals we sent, how the bidding was done, which type of contract we are using, what are the terms of the contract. It is good to understand overall things around us. It is also good to know how to make a proposal. If suppose a project manager wants to get into engagement management, then probably I would like to also learn about how to make a proposal, how to write statement of work for my next project. It is also good to know the clients of your clients. For example, if you work for an insurance customer who basically provide insurance services to their customers across Europe, for example, then I need to know which type of users, which type of customers my customer has, what basically, why they buy their products, what kind of services they offer, and who is their competitor. It is good to know your customers as well, so that we know. We just don't focus on projects, but we know the overall environment around us. We know how the business works for my customer, who are their users, how they do operate, who are their competitors, what regions they provide their services in, what is the sales cycle there, how production support works, how do we coordinate with different functions, the RFPs, the constraints, which is also about knowing your business. So how many functions we have? Is my project a cross-functional project? If I'm implementing a ERP or a CRM package for, say for example, a banking customer in say US, then IT is only the enabler for implementing that package. But then the package will be used by different departments. I need to understand how this package will impact different departments. Who are those stakeholders? What are their objectives, how they will use my products, how the product will bring a desired outcome, how that outcome will enable them to do things differently, what change will come. I need to understand the overall business. For example, we are coming out with a new product. Now, how that IT team is only going to build the product based on the specification, priorities, timelines and budget. But that product needs to be launched in the market. That will be probably done by marketing team. When it is launched in the market, then basically sales team will make sure that there are good sales and doing regular campaigns. We need finance team to basically keep funding the project and looking at the business value of the project. We need to have some other teams which are basically providing us with some facilities or human resources or procurement people who go and find vendors. We need to understand the end-to-end part of the project. We need to see where IT fits into the overall scenario. That would be good to know, because that shows that we know our customers well, we know our projects well, we know why our projects we are undertaken, we know how it fits in the overall business of my customer. The eighth point would be to ensure that we also know what kind of business value the project will add to the customer. For example, why this project is required by my customer, what are their challenges, how are we going to address those challenges, how we will fulfill their current business need. That is understanding the business case and developing a business case for the customer. We need to understand some finances and marketing basics. For example, the return on investment of the project, or the depreciation, or the concepts on fixed pricing, or concepts on variable cost, concepts on comparing identifying the investment appraisals, identifying how to basically review project at regular intervals. All these things probably will help us understand the business value of a project and how the project contributes to the overall objectives of an organization. It's not just about developing products, but it is also about ensuring that the products that we develop are useful to the business and they actually add value to the business. Next, about our resume, how we define our projects, defining the latest projects first, identifying basically your deliverables, defining clearly the objectives of your project, making sure that your role is clear in the project, making sure that we also identified our deliverables and how they were used by the customer or for the project, and making sure that you are selling yourself in that resume. Lastly, being available, focusing on what exactly you will do, network, connect to people, attend conferences, attend the chapter meetings, for example, from PMI, get to know as many people as you can through LinkedIn and other social sites. It is good to have connections, because mostly now the senior job profiles are done through networking and connection. So you will probably want to increase as many links you can in your social networking. Now the next steps, how we can help, we can, if you find some time, if you want to learn more about Agile, Prince2, PMP, if you want to know I'm already a PMP, why I should know Agile, or you are a Prince2 and you want to know why I should do Agile, why is it just another certification, or it really helps me in doing my job better, or you want to know something, some basics on financing, for example, how to calculate net present value of your project, or maybe the return on investment of a project, or some marketing basics, then you can connect with us. We can also basically provide sessions on how to do estimation, what techniques you can use based on different type of projects you do, based on information, or for example using your previous estimate, or what data to collect and how you can use that data. We can also talk about some basics on best practice standards. We can help you learn productivity tools, for example Microsoft Project, which can help you get better in managing your projects. That's basically some of the steps we can offer to you. Finally, it's over to you. It's time for questions. If you want to ask something, just feel free to ask, and also provide your feedback. Yeah, it is mandatory for getting the PDU certificates.
Thanks, Ashish, for insightful presentation on project management skill. Let us quickly take up questions now. I request you to please read out the question before answering them, so that all our users may listen to the commendable insight. So it's a request, please go to the question tab. There you can check all the questions.
I can see just one questions tab. Okay. Right. Being a delivery in a small company, I'm just creating estimation. Was not allowed to understand how to price a project. Not sure how to handle scope creep and manage the. Okay, so I have a question from one of the participants, and the question is, being a delivery head in a small company, I'm just creating estimations and was not allowed to understand how to price a project. Not sure how to handle scope creep and manage risks better. And because of this, I lost few good offers. Could you assist me, or any reference links? Absolutely. One of the thing about scope creep is, generally scope creep means one thing leading to another. For example, one change comes up, and because of that change we end up doing certain other changes, and then few more changes. Now what happens is, if such changes keep coming on the project, then we never tend to finish the project, and it becomes an ongoing activity. We need a good control by setting up a change control board or some kind of a change authority, and making sure that priorities of the project are understood. We also need to make sure we do configuration management. If changes happen, then we need to also version control our document so that we know which is the latest copy of a specific document. And change request itself is basically a risk that is one of the top 3 risks, you can say, that my project can be flooded with change requests, which might challenge finishing on time. Now, one of the things that people have started using is Agile, wherein you can reduce changes once you get into the sprint. Apart from that, you do prioritization just before you start the sprint. You can look at the requirements, their priorities, and then make sure you do a change freeze until at least the work within that sprint is completed. To do pricing and contracting, probably you will need to learn more about fixed price, time and material contracts. You will also need to learn about how do you price. Basically, say for example a developer, I pay a developer, let's say for example 50,000 rupees per month, and now I have to do a website. If I have to develop a website, I'm going to use this developer for 1 month, and I'm going to spend my own time for 5 days, and I'm going to use a tester for 10 days. I need to look at everybody's salary, but I also need to look at some other aspects like infrastructure. They use my phones, they use email services, they use some other overheads, for example HR people, facilities. We need to count that as well, and then you need to put some contingency, and then you need to put some kind of profit margins. So for doing pricing, you will need to understand some basics of cost management. Yeah. Perhaps you can connect after the webinar with the address, and probably we can give you some reference materials. Yeah. Hope that solves your problem or query. During an interview question, is it not professional to divulge sensitive project information? I think we should not. I mean, it is not good to give customer information or the projects we are doing. Many times some projects, for example, I work for, let's say, a product company, and they are coming out with a new product. And generally, when you start looking for a job, and when you are in a product development company, chances are when you are looking for the new employer, they might be in the same business. So talking about my current development and the project objectives and how that product helps my business might not be good. It is not good to give that. Perhaps they will still want to know who is your current employer, but for which customer you are doing the project, probably you would like to refrain from using those things if it is a non-confidential project, and if an NDA has been signed by the customer with your company. Another question, I feel PM should be aware of technology in IT. Don't you recommend this? Of course I do. If I have to manage a project which is a CRM project and which uses, for example, Siebel or Salesforce to basically implement it at my customer side, I need to know what is this product for. I need to know what features are offered by this. I need to know the life cycle of a software project. I need to know which type of skill sets are required. I need to know the best methodology. So Obviously, technology is definitely required. We should have that. But when you are talking about engagement management or program management, you will need to know that, but probably you won't do your hands-on on that, right? I mean, as a programmer, probably you might have, as a tech lead, you might have. But when you come to a position like a program manager or an engagement manager or an account manager, you need to know what technology suits the customer or what products will help. But writing code yourself probably is not something that you would like to do, isn't it? Okay, another question is, can you explain the difference between the project, program, portfolio, and engagement managers? Of course. Project manager, here, I mean, the roles that you talked about are project, program, portfolio, and engagement manager. Project manager is the one who will be basically working throughout the life cycle of the project. So say my customer is implementing a ERP system across their all global location. One of the location is India, and in that location I am the project manager. I have a team of about 50 people, analysts, designers, developers, testers. I manage the life cycle for India project. I understand the gaps, I understand the features that needs to be built. I'm looking after that. I keep everyone informed, I assign tasks, and I manage it. My job is to make sure that I deliver it on time. That's me, project manager. Now, my boss, who is a program manager, what is his job? My boss is actually managing the implementation across the world. So just like one project is going on in India, my boss is looking at implementing it in, say for example, Middle East, and then in UK, then in Australia, then in US. So he has to look after the resources that are shared across all projects. He has to ensure coordination, he has to manage dependencies, he has to ensure priorities are understood by different project managers. So all project managers report to the program manager who looks after all projects, their dependency and coordination. In that case, who is portfolio manager? So portfolio manager is the one who actually decided whether these projects and programs should take place, should be started first place. For example, when the request for this implementation came up, the portfolio managers looked upon the amount of money that will be invested and the kind of benefits expected from this project. So basically, they looked at whether we should go and do this project or this program. So they are the one who select project, they are the one who invest in people, they are the one who basically ensure project brings value for money. And finally, engagement managers. I work for an IT company in Mumbai, and the IT company basically has about 4,000 people working in Mumbai, and we have a couple of customers in UK. One of the customer is an insurance domain customer, and I am now basically moved to UK, and I work from there. And what is my job? My job is engagement management. What does that mean to me? Basically, working closely with the customer project directors, customer business users, and customer sponsors to understand their objectives, flesh out a plan, figure out from the offshore team which resources are available, what projects we can go for, making sure the customer remains updated about our performance and about our quality and our project development. Basically, somebody stationed maybe on-site, offshore, and looks after the overall engagement in terms of quality, in terms of people, in terms of budgets. Okay, right. Next question is, what is the current market trend? Does it expect project managers to be aware of technical knowledge as well? Yeah, I mean, we talked about this earlier as well. If you are basically implementing CRM package or a ERP package, or if you are doing, say for example, e-commerce type of website development, obviously it is expected you know what is the best approach to deliver such type of projects. You should know the life cycle, you should know the general features of that. Yeah. So while as a project manager you might not be doing technical things yourself, but without you having a little background about it, it is very difficult to understand dependencies amongst different teams, isn't it? But if you are already doing tech lead role, you already are aware about this. So when you move to the next management level, you need to know best practices in project management. You don't need to get into technical development, right? You already know that. Okay, now next question is, in fixed price projects, if customer increases scope by additional 20% effort and asks to complete in same cost, how to approach this scenario? Now it will actually depend upon your company and the relationship with the customer as well. It is just like you got say 100 requirements that were told by the customer to you, and you gave a price, for example, $100,000 to deliver them. Now the customer adds 20% extra things, for example 20 more requirements. Now they are going to cost you more. Usually this should go through change control system, because if you do those extra effort, it's going to eat up your profit because it's fixed price. So before these efforts are added, we need to first make sure that we identify it as an additional work. This has to be submitted to a control board or change advisory board, which can have a representative from customer side and a supplier side. They basically have to negotiate. Now this approach might change from customer to customer and your relationship. I mean, if I am into an engagement with a customer and we have been working together past 2 years, and then there are another few years we are looking to do some more projects, probably in such cases you might even have to absorb some of these costs yourself. Yeah, so it will again depend upon the scenario, but the best bet is to make sure that we understand the change request procedure, we have the change control board, and the customer appreciates these type of processes. Yeah, again I would say that probably using agile, scrum type of methodologies might reduce the number of change requests. Identifying stakeholders early in the project might reduce them. Involving them throughout the project might reduce the change request. Keeping the business involved also might help them to understand your perspective as well. Okay, so another question. I'm a Prince 2 practitioner certified, worked in London for a number of years. Could you please mention a couple of tools, methods in practice for project estimation? I have 2 years plus experience. Okay, so obviously Prince 2 doesn't talk about the tools or the techniques to do estimation. Prince 2 talks more about the overall method and process for managing the project. Now, you can look at a couple of tools. For example, you can look at Microsoft Project. If suppose you are asking me a scheduling software, yeah, so a scheduling software, I would recommend you to look at Microsoft Project. You can go download a trial software from Microsoft Project, that is the 2013 version. You can try yourself. I mean, you are already a certified project manager, so you know how to make a schedule. You'll probably have to learn the tool itself, on how to use that tool to capture your project priorities, schedule, resources, costs and all. Apart from that, Prince 2 doesn't talk about techniques basically to kind of estimate. So you might have to look at some estimates. Maybe you can do on-job training in your company if you have certain estimation techniques like complexity based, or maybe if you are running in a product development, if you are working in a product development company, maybe look for planning poker, or look for some different type of estimations used in function point you can look at, or you can do a course on CAPM or PMP wherein you can learn some bottom-up estimating or how to use your previous estimates. Yeah. Okay, so another question, how do we do team planning? Now, I didn't fully understand, but if you are saying that how do you plan for resources, then this is how it goes. Imagine I'm doing a website development for my customer. So how do I go about it? I write down all the phases and the deliverables and tasks. I also write down the efforts based on my previous experience. And then what do I do? I basically write down the positions or the roles that are required to do those tasks. For example, write user requirements, I will assign it to somebody like business analyst. Develop code or module, I will assign it to a developer. Then probably tester, senior testers, test manager, and so on. So I will write down all roles basically that will be assigned to those tasks. And later on, if I'm using a software like Microsoft Project, I can display which resources are required on my project. Like I want testers during September, October, November. I can also look at, I want during September, I want 3 testers who will spend about 60 days on my project. But in October, I need only 2 who will spend about 40 days. And in November, I only want 1 tester full-time and 1 part-time. So first you identify how much efforts are required by month, by role. Then what you do is you take that and give it to your functional managers, resource managers, delivery managers, anybody who basically assigns resources to your project. Then they will probably look at the people who are available in the company to take up that role and they have that required competency and also available. They will assign those people to your projects and you will know the names of your people. That's where you do team planning. And if you want to see who is doing what, then the software also shows you the team planner view, yeah, which actually shows you which people are doing, when they are required, what they do, and so on. Yeah. You will also need to identify what role they are playing, the RACI chart for your project, the organization chart. Probably that will help you in team planning. It is also possible that you want to do some training planning for them, succession planning for them, accountabilities, their basically rewards, recognition. All of those things can come in team planning. Yeah, it's pretty broad scope actually. Okay, I am a business analyst right now with 3 years experience. I want to move to project management role. What steps I should follow? Okay, so business analyst, which means that you have a good hold on the functional requirements or the functionality of your customer domains or requirements. Now moving to the project management side, probably you will need to learn the basics on how to do scheduling, how to do work breakdown structure. Probably you might already know the work breakdown structure, so you'll have to take it forward from there. How do you break down that work breakdown structure into the tasks that developers, testers will do? How do you figure out which resources will be assigned? How you do estimation? And how do you do reporting, finding stakeholders? So probably you will need to go and take up a course like PMP or Prince2. Maybe a PMP course will help you learn the wide skills that are required. So you will need to know how to figure out whether you need an external help in your project, so what type of contracts to use for projects, what kind of estimation techniques you should do, how do you do costing of your project, how do you build your teams, how do you do quality management. So you will need to know other areas of your of skills that are required for a project manager. Yeah? Okay, the next question is, who needs to do ITIL and who needs to do PMP? Can I have the segregation please if working in a company? Okay, so here it is. PMP or Prince2, these are for people who basically deliver projects. What I mean to say is, my customer, let's say, is in insurance domain and they want to implement a ERP package. A project will identify their objectives, their requirements, make a design, bring teams who will build the product, implement, train the people on how to use the software, and then hand it over to the operations team. So the project is over. The project has to have an end date. It is done. Now the operations team will start managing the operations. That is, ensuring that the ERP package is basically used properly. If there are any problems, they solve it. So what operations people do? A new user comes up, they create a new user. Somebody leaves, they will basically remove the user. If the site is down, they will basically look at the availability of site. They will keep doing backups, they will do patches. They will basically make sure that the system is up running and available, and that the system is reliable and secure. That is operations. Now, to deliver projects, we need to know how to know requirements, how to make estimates, how to make schedule, how to bring people, how to ensure quality, do testing, do procurement, all done till the project is handed over to the operations people. That's PMP or that's Prince2, how to run a project till everything is completed. Once you hand it over to the operations, ITIL will begin, which actually talks about how to manage operations, how to basically deliver to your customers' expectations in operational environment, the SLS to be met. How do you meet those SLS? How do you do incident management? How do you handle major incidences in your operations? How do you keep the knowledge of previous problem solving? All of that is part of ITR for service managers, basically for managing the operations and processes. Okay, so another question, is there a common PM certification which will be acceptable in all over the world? As you say, PMP is for US client and Prince2 is for UK or Europe. Do you think it's a drawback for PM professional, and also it's costly and cumbersome to achieve these all certification? I do agree with you. However, that's how it is. The PMP certificate is quite popular across the American region, and also is quite popular in Middle East and in India. It's been around many years in India as well, and a lot of employers are asking for it. But when you work in Europe or when you work in Australia, most employers will look for Prince2. But it is not like they talk about two different things. It's not like they talk the same thing and competing. A PMP basically certification is more about building skills of a project manager. So as a project manager, what things you should know, how you do estimation, how do you do contracting, how do you do resource management, how do you do scheduling, how do you do scope management. It talks about, for a project manager, what are the essential skills, and it also expects that you should have relevant experience of working on projects. And now you are basically sharpening your skills and getting the depth of knowledge. It only talks about project manager and doesn't talk about other people. It doesn't talk about templates, and it doesn't talk about step-by-step process, because it's a guidance and not a method. On the other hand, Prince2 talks about project manager, talks about the sponsor, talks about the business users, talks about the vendors, talks about the team leads. So it actually brings about the team that is required to manage the project. It gives you a step-by-step process to basically know what happens next, who does it, and also gives you templates. So if suppose a step says make a business case, it also gives you a template that says this is a template for business case, make it like this. So you have the methodology, which actually companies can use off the shelf. So what's the difference then? Prince2 gives you method but doesn't give you techniques. You have to figure out your techniques that suits your project, your industry. PMP gives you techniques but doesn't give you method and templates. When you basically bring both together, integrate, you get something which is basically widely acceptable. But the other question that you said is there something which is widely acceptable? ITIL is widely acceptable, but that's not for project management, that's for service management. And Agile is also widely acceptable in software development projects. Yeah, so you can look for those certificates. They are quite widely acceptable. But in India, a Prince2 or a PMP will be acceptable to most employers. Yeah, I think so. Or maybe PMP is more acceptable to most employers. Next question is, what is the difference between a functional project manager and a technical project manager? Well, okay, you are more towards understanding the specifications of requirement, or how the product should work, or how the project should deliver requirements. You talk more from the business analyst perspective. You are talking about functional project manager. Or in fact, let's say within a company, a project is being run for procurement people, or for human resource management people, or for sales people, or for marketing people. We are talking about functional PMs who are basically looking at a particular business unit. And you have technical guys who basically are tech leads. Yeah, they are responsible for making designs and also lead their teams in terms of solving their technical queries and all the and basically kind of reviewing, doing formal technical reviews. So a technical project manager would be more project manager is a designation, but more inclined towards doing technical activities. Yeah. Right. There is another question which is I was asked a question on what is my project management style. Okay. Now there are two basic styles available. Yeah. One is command and control, and another is basically agile style, which is more kind of a servant leadership. Okay. Now what is the difference? In a command and control, the traditional project management style, the project manager determines project requirements, makes a task list, and then delegates the tasks to the people. The people will then keep reporting to the project manager, who collects the status, updates the plan, and keeps everyone informed. That is command and control, general traditional ways of doing things. But in agile, the project manager doesn't make a task list for team. Basically, project manager is more like a facilitator, like a leader, or like a servant leader who basically makes sure that the team is empowered to make decision about their task and how they are going to work together and taking accountabilities. So more like delegating to people and making sure they basically leaving it to them to decide tasks and all, but keeping an eye to ensure that their obstacles, their bottlenecks are addressed. Yeah. Now you talk about few things in the PMP course like the theory X and theory Y type of managers. Now you can't choose between this or that. You have to figure out what type of resources I have. I mean, if my people are junior, 1 year of experience, or someone has just joined, I can't just give them task and kind of believe that they will be able to finish and deliver it back to me. I would like to basically monitor them and make sure I handhold them, I direct the work, and I ensure that they are going through a learning process until I start delivering them. And at some point in time, I will basically empower them and give them work, and they will plan it themselves and give it to me. But for junior people, I will follow this type of thing wherein I command, control, and basically help them grow. But when I've got senior people on my team, a senior developer who has got good experience, worked with me last couple of years, I know him, I can trust him, probably it's not good to micromanage. Probably it is good to delegate deliverables and let him or her figure out the tasks, estimates, scheduling, and keep me informed. Yeah. So you are talking about the management style in terms of delegation, yeah, in terms of micromanagement or macro management, empowerment versus kind of command and control. Okay, another question is I am in ERP implementation, but I want to shift to project management. How do I do the transition? What are the skills that I need to concentrate? Now obviously you come from a technical background, probably a business analyst or a designer or a technical architect. Now you already know how to collect requirements or make designs and get your deliverables completed, checked, peer review, quality management. You need to understand now the big picture, because doing the ERP implementation is not just about technical thing, but it is also about talking to stakeholders, first figuring them out, going to them, finding out what are their objectives, what are their key requirements, making sure their quality expectations are understood. You need to understand how to make a business case for the project. You need to understand how to establish a project within a company, how to negotiate to get better resources on your project. You need to understand more about breaking down your deliverables, finding your deliverables by breaking your requirements. You need to learn about WBS. You'll probably need to learn about overall project life cycle and decision making and empowerment and escalation procedures, you need to have a broad level of knowledge area understanding. Or maybe a PMP course would be a good to go for, because it gives you the a broad view of the skills required by a project manager. So you learn procurement, you learn human resource management, quality management, scheduling, costing. So good in-depth coverage is offered. Yeah. Okay. Then we have the next one, which is okay, what is the best approach to ensure that project development meets the security requirements of client and organization? Now, security requirements, I mean, it doesn't, it's not very clear really, but are you saying here that security in the sense confidentiality about your project? Probably if that is the case, when you went to the contracting part, that time only they would have asked you for signing up a NDA, and maybe everybody involved in the project might have signed the NDA. You will have to plan how we are also going to make sure, because signing NDA and implementing NDA are two different things. We need to find out, okay, so we have signed the NDA, how do we make sure that our team basically practices this and are complied with it? Maybe your IT team can help there, maybe they will disable all your USBs, maybe people will have to follow confidentiality. If you see most banks and offshore financial services, they adhere to the strict best practices. One of the things that you might want to look at is the ISO 20000 requirement, probably 20,000 or what is that called as, probably 27,000. One of them is for IT security. Yeah, you might want to look at those standards and probably see which standards, if I follow in my project, will enable me to manage the security requirements of my customer. Yeah, you'll have to look at the access controls. You'll have to look at the data backups and who can access the data and how you are going to encrypt. You'll also look at some infrastructure requirement. That is part of your project planning. Now, this is the question that few people had asked. If you are not coming from that technology background, then at least you should have the you can say ability to figure out what all things I need to know or need or to implement to ensure security requirements are met. Probably I need a subject matter expert like a IT guy who can I can go speak to, and he gives me an entire plan. So at least we should be able to figure out that requirement and make sure that experts are engaged to make sure this happens. Yeah. So having yourself the knowledge gives you a good handle, but you can still need you'll still need experts to implement it for you. Okay, right. So another question: how to basically give examples of handling conflicts. You will have to look at which conflict you are talking about. The user and your team conflict about a change request, or maybe during user acceptance testing, probably the business users who are doing the acceptance testing might raise defects which your team basically doesn't agree, which says this is a new functional requirement. Or maybe we have already had that defect in that system, it has been discovered now with the new functionality. Or it could be a conflict between your internal development team and your internal testing team. Some says it's a defect, some says it's not a defect on our environment, check your environment first. Or it could be a problem, a conflict between two developers for some opinion. For example, what is the best practice to use? It will depend from situation to situation. I think I gave you some pointers to figure out conflicts. You go and retrospect which type of conflicts you had in your projects, a developer to developer in terms of writing code, in terms of design, in terms of exception handling, in terms of memory management, something like that. Or maybe you'll have to look at developer or tester, or you might have to look at probably HR manager and a developer, or about some salary raise or some kind of performance assessment that the developer did not accept and came to you complaining that I did not get, in spite of all my efforts, I did not get these ratings, and probably is not very happy and also indirectly gave you an indication that might be looking for a job. Think of such conflicts and think how you overcome those situations. You might want to gets these kind of conflicts. Yeah, you might want to look at how you solved the problem, or how did you help in getting a win-win situation for both people who were involved. Okay. Now once again, when you do Ajay a PMP course, probably you will look at some kind of conflict management techniques. Yeah, you look at different type of techniques on conflict management, why conflicts happen, and other things. All right. Any further questions?
I think we are done with the question and answer part. Right. Still, we are getting a lot of questions from our participants. Right. So we will share all the questions once we are done with this session. I request all our participants to please visit our website, that is techgeek.com. Please go under past webinar section once this session is over, and please post your question there. And I request Ashish also, please visit after 2-3 days to our website, and if you find any question there, please respond back to them. Right?
Yep.
So I think our question and answer round is over. So I'm really thankful to Ashish for taking so many questions and conducting this webinar. It was indeed a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of this webinar will be available on our website, that is techgeek.com, by day after tomorrow. Thank you all. Have a nice weekend. Thank you,
Thank you,
Ashish.
everybody, and have a very long weekend and an excellent weekend. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time out, taking time out to attend this webinar and make it successful. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Sachin.
Thank you.
Okay.